Hi, Jamie.
Hi.
Okay.
Eric's
Uh,
blowing me saying hi.
did Erik bring in Gandhi for us?
Oh, yes.
All right,
And
good.
in fact, it was a 5:11 a.m. wake-up call.
Oh, my apologies.
And I could not fall back asleep. I didn't really know why. I had kind of tried to forget that this was happening today
Mm-hmm.
because I think we made arrangements a few days ago, and I was laying in bed, and Erik was telling me to get up so I
Mm-hmm.
could center myself, and I could. He wanted me to only drink liquids today before having this. So I've been drinking tons of water, and I'm going to have a big lunch after this. I can tell you that. So I had time to meditate this morning and call him in. It was a nice, different vibe than what we've done with the other connections. The other connections were just kind of here they are, whereas Gandhi kind of had this whole come in, let's do this together, and then uh,
Okay.
here he is. It set a mood.
Okay. All right. Hello, Gandhi. How are you doing?
He said, hello, Lisa. He's doing fine.
Good. All right. Can we ask you some questions, please?
He said, please do.
Good.
He's got good, crisp dictation.
Okay. I would like the first question to be, it is told that the Indian literary classics had a deep impact on your life, particularly the one about King Harish Chanda. I'm sorry if I'm not pronouncing that right. Can you tell me how and why?
He said the pronunciation doesn't matter. Literary influences should be important to everyone. It is a chance to see through another person's eyes. Is it a chance to experience other person's knowledge, how they interact with the world, and how are you going to allow it to influence yourself? This encouraged me to not focus on the exterior of the body, but the importance of the interior side. As I was a younger man, I I often studied more on perfection, material look, the fabric of my suit, how my tongue moved in my mouth, what kind of knowledge was I going to gather in that one day. And as I became an educated man, I began to change the focus onto not what I could see, but what could I feel. This shift for me was a pivot in my life. I didn't need encouragement. I didn't need discipline to follow it because my heart was so happy and all my fears were gone. Every step I took after this, after these influences that you're speaking of, were for the betterment of the world, for the betterment of the man inside my body, and it was to encourage people to be educated, not just born warriors. Um, he has both of his hands on the chair, and every now and then one hand would come up, but it's a very slow gesture. There's nothing bubbly or outrageous. He's real centered in his words. He has no difficulty in pausing and thinking before he speaks. It's such a different feel. Nothing is rushed. All the time is going to be available. He was talking about the warrior, and he says, Of course, every emotion has its place in life. It's just, where do you choose to place it?
Okay. All right. Now, you were married at the age of 13 to 14 years old. You had a child at the age of 15, but the child died only a few days later. Did that part of your childhood affect your political future at all?
When you started saying the ages of when he was married, he kind of smiled and he says, "Was I that young?" Like, it just wasn't a marker for him to look at the age of when he married. The death of his firstborn, he is sharing with me that it was very impactful on him. It was his first lesson in grief. But being at such a young age, he was more influenced by his father and by the environment that he was raised in. So when he experienced the loss of his son, it was through that set of eyes. He quickly, there was quickly another child after, and then soon he left. What do you mean you left? He went away to school, to London, to school, and this distance that he had with his wife and his newborn, he said it was equivalent to the distance of the son that had passed away. And he was able to work through those changes. But he often relied on that experience to help other people that he came across in life, and how to see that the loss and the suffering does not have to be a sadness, that it can be experienced in a grateful and very beautiful and delicate way. I love the way he says beautiful.
Oh, okay. Now, were you a good father and husband? It's said that you were not.
Yeah, when you ask, he furrowed his brow
Furrowed,
and
yeah, okay.
kind of dropped his chin, but his shoulders are he's still relaxed. If you're looking at my actions measured against the description of what a father is today, I was not that man. I was more comfortable and more driven to have the experience of helping the country, a nation, the world, and having my children see this in their father. He said his wife was an angel sent to him.
Oh.
She accepted his calling in life. She never for once put her foot in front of me. She chose to stand beside me, and it was through many deep conversations that we held a true and honest love. For this is the medicine that all people need in life.
Okay. Now, your attempts to establish a law practice failed because you were too shy to speak up. Why was this?
What I was speaking up with didn't resonate with what my inner body wanted to do.
Okay.
It couldn't come out. He said it couldn't come out. It was not important.
Okay.
But the moment that I saw and experienced discrimination, are you saying discrimination? Discrimination amongst people. It lit a fire in me that never went out. And the fire for me was energy. It was power. It was warmth. It was not about destruction. And though there was, and though there was many literatures, there were many lectures and lessons from religions and beliefs before, there was nothing that could fulfill what I needed to teach. I decided to submerge myself in the situation to understand how to give it a language. And when I found that language, I dedicated into teaching it to anyone and everyone who was willing to listen.
Okay. Okay. Did you have any idols that influenced you greatly? Okay. Now, in South Africa, you experienced racism, prejudice, and social injustice firsthand, being thrown off a train, being beaten for not making room for European passengers, by being barred from several hotels. Was this the turning point for you? And if so, tell us more.
I looked at him and I said, all of this happened to you? And when I asked that to him, he kind of shooted off like this was not something to be proud of or to wear it as an honor or a badge. He said all these things were afflicted upon me by people who did not know how to express their inner love, love truth. Because I received these experiences willingly, I just looked at him like, really? He's putting his hand out to me. He's got these very large, like knuckles, you know. Anyway. Because I received these discriminations, these beatings, these words, he's also talking about jail time. Willingly, he accepted what was pushed upon him as being paciful. Paciful?
Peaceful,
That's not
maybe?
a word.
Peaceful?
Peaceful? He said, do not be nervous. And I was like, okay. Not nervous. Continue. Because he accepted it willingly, the offender, the one lashing out, was able to see that his actions were not receiving the kind of reaction they needed to feel empowered for what they were doing. And this is what created the change. So if you are asking me if this was the point where I decided to become a different man, it was. In fact, it was the moment that I was ripped from the train. And he kind of pulls his hand out like he was grabbed and forcefully taken off. And I chose not to go anywhere but to sit and observe in the train station how other Indian people were treated from the British. This is where I decided I would no longer pursue law, even though I was hired to go to South America to follow his law career.
It was South America or South Africa?
South Africa.
Okay.
Sorry. South Africa. It's funny, that's the picture I saw in my head. I had no idea I was saying America. That he was most happy to find that this cause came along to where he didn't have to follow the law. Mm-hmm.
Okay. Now, how did you come upon or into developing the nonviolent means of civil disobedience? Or how did you distinguish this from any other form of aggression? After all, it's passive aggression.
He's laughing. He said willingness is not passive aggression.
Okay. Anything else on that?
Yeah, I was waiting too. And now you can probably hear my stomach growl because I've just drank fluids all day.
I don't hear it. Eric's made you suffer. Erik, you're being a bad boy.
It just shows you how good I listen.
Well, that's true. Uh-oh.
He says passive aggression, you have an agenda and you're trying to manipulate. Passive aggression is almost sometimes stronger than the force of a hit. He said willingness, if you are willing to behave in a peaceful way, in a non-violent way, in an accepting way, there is no passive aggression allowed. It cannot sit in the same space. He's saying different words, and I told him just keep it to the English so it would be very easy for us to move forward. Nonviolent. I don't know, it began with an A, it was very pretty. But nonviolent, he said, came to him when he recognized one of his warrior interactions where a person decided that he was the wrong look or in the wrong place or did the wrong action and decided to take it upon himself to correct it, but in a very physical way, that when he willingly went, the struggle was taken away. And if there is a willingness and there is no struggle, then it holds space for communication. And if there is struggle, if there is war, if there is disagreement, there is no room for communication. To become nonviolent gives every person the platform and the foundation to communicate honestly and from their heart space.
Okay. You still believe in turning the other cheek?
Yes.
Okay. Now, did you see any good in British colonization? For all the harm they did, didn't they improve the economic health and standard of living in India, just as they did in South Africa?
Yes.
Can you expand on that, please?
He smiles. He has a mustache, right?
I don't know.
It's just hair on top of his lip. But it's like mini whiskers. It's not like this thick, big thing. It's just... He told me I described him like a very cute kitten or an animal when I see mini whiskers. I commend any leader that can come in and teach enlightenment, knowledge, betterment without force. The British were not doing this. They had the sole belief that their knowledge and their platforms were the best choices for our country, for our people, and our culture that were so extremely different. They had no respect for us, and they used us for financial gain. through this, we were able to retrieve business structures, government platforms that were very useful to us in our growth still today as a country, if they were handed to us in a way where it would have respected our culture and respected our emotions and our needs, then I would have praised them more. But you do not buy sour milk because you like the person who's selling it. There are responsibilities to your soul, to your spirit, and to your heart that you do not engage even what you call passively in wrong actions. You do not purchase stolen jewelry because it was a good deal. If you know it is stolen, he said, you must do the rightful thing. In my set of beliefs, every living person, every living creature creates their own fruit, creates their own outcome. Even the tree has this responsibility and this power. Every animal, every human. But if you choose to reach out and take someone else's fruit, you are creating a disease within yourself that will take away your own livelihood. I'm looking at him and he says, did this answer your question? And I can't even remember what the question is.
Okay. Now, you long held self-sufficiency in high regard. When and how in your life did you see the importance of this?
He's pausing. He's not saying anything yet. He was telling me, though, the first time he did a fast, where he ate no food, he drank only water.
Like you.
Is this my lesson today? He said it was important for me to clean my body out of impurities, of, I don't know that word, I'm sorry, of just outer influences, environmental influences, be it food or juices or fruit and vegetables, all kinds of things. And in that fasting, he realized that self-sustaining is necessary because it gave him, in that fasting, such a freedom from every person's influence on his body or every company that had an influence on his body, every statement or need by even a doctor or a care provider or a friend. He was instantaneously free from all of it. And he said that it was such an enlightenment process for him. He saw with new eyes how he could teach communities to become one mind and one body and fast from those governments and those rules and those ideals that were not healthy for the whole. So it was through an experience on his own that he was able to see how it could be placed in a whole. He's really great at giving visuals. They're really colorful, very, very vivid colors. But they're always simple visuals. They're not complex. You know, like just seeing a bunch of people in a crowd and they're all wearing different clothing, brightly colored. It's not all white.
Okay. All right, now, I've noticed in this video that there's at first there was a lot of stuttering in the video. I mean, there was not a sync between the audio and the video. And the reason I bring this up is I noticed that the color changed a little bit back and forth. Is there anything to this? Is there anything related to his energy or Erik's energy interfering, or is that just a coincidence?
Erik says, not me. And on my end, it's been absolutely perfect.
Okay.
There's been, everything is synced. The color's been the same. Nothing's changed.
Does Gandhi have anything to do with it?
He's apologizing if it was his energy. He says wherever he goes, whenever he comes into a space, he comforts the whole, the all. And so he's saying it very well could be him. And he's kind of lightheartedly telling me that, he's not very avid on the computer.
I bet not. He's old school, huh?
Pen and paper.
All right, because I have not had this happen with the other videos. So, well, try to keep it straight. Try to keep it straight, Gandhi. Okay, please. But I'll try to sync it on the YouTube videos. All right, now in follow up to the previous question about self-sufficiency, I'll ask the same thing about women's rights. You did so much to elevate women to a new level in the eyes of India. Can you tell me more about that? In other words, when and how in your life do you see the importance of this?
When did he see the importance of women's rights?
Yeah. When and how did you elevate women to a new level in the eyes of India? And why? Yeah.
He said it is interesting in every man's growth that as they learn, they'll see more details and more clarity that they can do as they grow older and wiser within the knowledge. He's talking about when he was helping the community as a whole. In this day and age, it was mostly only the men who had a voice, the men that were able to make a change, and it was the women who must follow. I must say that after I discovered how to help, the whole, the country, the structures, government structures, and free this up for people, my nation to be free thinkers and individuals, then only then was I highly aware that it was the women who needed the most help. My wife, okay, you were so cute when you just said that. He's like put his little hand up on his chest. He was like, my wife, though very dedicated to our marriage, was not a silent woman. She was equally as known as myself. And in our moments of privacy, she would speak to me on what she saw and what she knew not to be in and he said a really pretty word, and I said, please, can you go back to English? Not to be in one's whole or comfort or best interest or needs. And it was through his wife that he was encouraged to start working with the women. And he said it was, he was an old man. he's telling me he was an old man and he just got sentenced to jail. And he said, always for another 2 years, 6 years. And he's like throwing out numbers. 3 more years. He says, I spent a lot of time and thought. But it was when I saw my wife stand up to the officers in the line as they're taking me away. And she says to them, if you put him away, I will take his place. He says, my heart could never be bigger.
Mm-hmm.
But it was her influence that made him see the women's needs.
Aw.
My heart could never be bigger. I love how he announces words like they're crisp and they're pronounced correctly, and it's really nice to listen to.
Aw, that's awesome. Now, you were also against untouchability. Was there some point in your life that influenced your desire to champion the cause of decency, equality, and respect for all human beings? And tell me more about that.
He says, at what point in my life was it not there?
Okay.
He says, maybe as a child, but I was never attracted to this kind of lifestyle. It is no one's right to push power on any other living being.
Okay. Now, looking back on your long fasts, do you still think they hold value? And if so, why? I think you've already answered that question, have you?
Yes. And he says they hold great value. I do not clearly understand how the modern day person is so unwilling to accept this kind of study of oneself, to always be inundated,
Inundated?
that word, with the environment's food, the environment's pollution. There are many sayings that suggest the same thing, that you do not know or understand what you possess until it is gone. Why isn't then that each individual must go through fasting or to live without, so they must understand what they were living with? It is very important, he says.
Okay. Now, you were assassinated by a Hindu nationalist who thought you were too sympathetic to India's Muslims while you were trying to stop the carnage between the Muslims on one hand and the Sikhs and Hindu on the other. Did you take sides? And if so, why?
I would never take sides.
Okay.
I don't have an interest in taking sides. Being either in one place or another would have not fed me any better. It was my ultimate goal to house the idea of not to separate. There was a separation due to anger and due to ego.
Mm-hmm.
When I knew if I could calm the internal disagreement, man's disagreement with each other, that there would be no need for separation. Often so much action takes place without emotion. It is the mind that powers it. The mind, if taught wrong, can do so much damage to the heart.
Absolutely. Now, was there any spiritual reason you had to die a violent death, Gandhi?
he puts on the sweetest smile and he says, I have no fear of death. This is what made my life so easy. I knew truly no pain, no harm could ever be given to me unless I desired it to be so, or unless I called it to be so. I know that my death needed to be so loud that it helped people's compassion come out. He's got such a cool vibe. Excuse me. The visual that comes with it is amazing. Like, he shows me being outside. He's escorted. He has really strong men around him, but he is almost so weak that his gait or his walk it's labored. I see him being very thin, and he's bowing. He's honoring the man who shoots him. He bows to the man, and he remembers hearing the sound of the gun several times. So it had several bullets in it. And he said, I felt no pain. I fell into death. The men that were next to him were not holding him any longer. They were trying to assure the situation. But he saw himself going down to the ground. The ground was dirt. It wasn't like a concrete kind of a space. It was powdery dirt. And he said he fell into death. And he knew at that moment that his life would be louder than any other sound on earth. And it would take that to make people listen to how they felt. For that, he was very grateful. And then he smiles at me again and he says, and it makes a good ending to a good story.
Now, how do you feel about Indians raising you to that level of being a messiah?
Mahatma. He says, I did not ask for the title. I didn't need it. What I want is for every man to feel the way that I did when I was living. That is my goal. And it still is.
Okay. Now, how did you try to stop the carnage, and would you have done anything different?
I do not have any regrets, if this is the word you are asking for.
Mm-hmm.
I lived my life in every moment about stopping the carnage. He says, this was not my job. I am not responsible for what other men do to other men. It was only my goal to be the teacher and to be the example. And this I feel I did to my highest and best degree.
Okay. Now, you dedicated your life to discovering truth, or satya, by learning from your own mistakes and conducting experiments on yourself. You stated that the most important battle was to overcome your demons, fears, and insecurities. You summarized your belief as God is truth, but you later changed this to truth is God. Do you still believe this, and can you expand on that?
He says you've done a beautiful job in researching, and that yes, he does still believe in this from the inside of his body all the way out. I don't know what just happened, but he just giggled a little bit. It was just like this soft. I'm glad he's having a good time.
Well, we aim to please. Anything else on that?
Yeah, he's telling me about some of the things he took away in his life so that he could experience what truth is. You know, without the desires of life, without temptations. So wow. He had no relations with his wife. He became celibate is the word. He's not using that word. He has another word for it, but it's celibacy.
Mm-hmm.
Clothing, appearance. That's why he was more attracted to it's either the base class of the Indian, like the wrap around the lower half of the body, and then, the shawl across to keep him warm if necessary. What other people would see in me as being lack of wealth, lack of fashion, lack of choice. He said for him was really freedom. Freedom. A lot of what I see in today's cultures is that the desire and the want get in the way of the true purpose of the heart. The true purpose of the heart will always lead to truth, which will always lead to God. He was just kind of offhandedly telling me how he thought technology, TV, commercials, internet were all extremely fascinating, but that they are all most often misleading. If you are speaking to someone with an agenda, you are speaking to them in the wrong way.
Okay.
I asked him, I said, well, we have an agenda because we wanted to know more about you. And I said, so why were you willing to do this today? Erik goes, good question. Thanks.
It is a good question.
He lets me know that we're not trying to change his words nor edit his story out. He said, curiosity is not an agenda. He said, what you do with the answers you've received, and if it's self-fulfilling, then it's an agenda. And he is saying that he can see that we won't do anything with this. We'll just post it as is.
Of course. Now,
I love that. Curiosity is not an agenda.
Very well put. Now, you believed in celibacy, but it's said that you brought your grandniece to sleep naked in your bed as a spiritual experiment. Is that true? And if so, why?
He's telling me that it was nothing sexual. What encouraged him to follow through with such an act, which in today's culture would sound beastly, was to help her see that the body is a body. It is an instrument. It is not to be shied from. It was to show her a level of comfort, not a level of intimacy. He's talking about it being so much as an experience for a lesson. I mean, really, even the way he talks about it is so plain. Like, there's no emotional excitement, there's no weirdness, it's just real blah. It was just, you comb your hair.
Did she need that lesson? Was there something about that she required that lesson?
Yes. He's sharing with me about her mother was assaulted, and that the way it was told was very disturbing to the child. And just to show the child that you look at every person as an individual. You do not look at them as if one man is to do this, all men are to do this. Mm-hmm. So it was almost to deconstruct the trauma that the child heard and felt within the body.
Assaulted sexually or just assaulted physically?
Sexually.
Okay. Now, what do you think about those who eat meat from the spiritual standpoint?
He says everybody has the right to make their own choices and how they feed themselves. But for me, what I have experienced and what I have felt is that the consumption of meat thickens the energy within the body. It creates more difficulty to allow the body, the energetic body, to move freely.
Okay. Can you share a little bit about a life that most influenced your last one?
Erik and Gandhi are talking. Erik's giving examples, a future life, or is there one that was similar to, your characteristics as Gandhi? Gandhi is talking about being it's so interesting. He's talking about being a coyote.
Interesting.
Beautiful scenery that I'm looking at. It's being in a forest with just perfectly straight trees. One after the other, perfectly straight. It's snow on the ground, The coyote has a very sullen waistline, very thin, but the front is extremely full, thick fur, just beautifully groomed. No scars, no dirtiness. The animal's gorgeous. Gandhi said he held this life as a male coyote. The coyote family, the pack, he says they depend on everyone having a specific role. He says the communication is so in depth that they don't use language. They use only the emotion. Only the cry can depict the emotion that's within. Being a lead male, alpha, he would often go off to seek direction or to find food and then call to everyone to follow. It was his choice whether to kill or not. He said they are a very loving animal. They're very caring, and they do not attack without purpose. There is such a balance to being in this family structure that there is even times of deep fasting for every member of the family, all together. And it becomes such a enlightened and beautiful moment between everyone within the family. I wanted to experience this as a human. What I noticed is when I became human after having this experience, that my pack, my immediate family, it did not possess the same strong boundaries as it did when I was the coyote. I recognize that my pack is not my immediate family. My pack is every man, every woman that walks on earth. And it was daunting for me to understand that I, just being one, would not have the voice big enough to pull my pack in. This is what I wanted to do for myself, to show to myself and to my family as a whole. And he holds his arms out. To my family as a whole. I would say this is the experience I had. This was the life I had that was most influential. And he's kind of assured of himself. His head kind of nods. And he's very comfortable in my chair. His feet are not on the floor. He tucks them up. One knee up, like this, like one foot is on the chair, and the other leg is wrapped around.
Okay. Now, I will say to you, Erik, I want you to be thinking about questions for Gandhi, okay? Because that's the last question I'm going to ask you, and we're almost finished, okay? Okay?
He said, okay.
Okay. Now, in terms of earthly time, Gandhi, have you reincarnated or do you plan to?
Yes, I have, and I still have plans to reincarnate back to Earth.
All right. Now, in what way have you? Well, who are you reincarnated as? In other words, what is your role on the earth now?
My role on the Earth will be the same as who I was.
Okay.
And it will be between animal and man.
In terms of earthly time now, what is your role? The same now? I understand that in the future, you explained in future time, but are you doing the same kind of work right now?
He smiles and kind of tilts his forehead to me. He says, "There is no future. It's only now." So he was like, "What is she talking about?"
No, I understand that, but in the same time that Jamie and I are in terms of sequential time,
He says, for the sake of human understanding. He said, "I'm on Earth today."
and doing the same work you're doing now.
Yes.
Are you a female or male?
He hasn't said a word to me. He's waving me off the question.
Okay, that's fine. Tell us about your afterlife and the work you do there.
My afterlife is as I create it. It has every moment filled with joy and literature. Hard time saying that. And his purpose is still to continue to be the man. I said, that was confusing. Can you say it again? But more simple, if you can break it down a little bit. To be every aspect of every life that he is experiencing, to pull them together and be that man, to be that soul.
Okay. Now, I know you've said a bit about this, but again, I want you to just summarize the answer. What was your spiritual mission as Gandhi, and do you think you accomplished that?
My spiritual mission was to show by example. And he says we've talked about many of these already in our conversation. And I feel I did all that I came to do.
Can you share what your most important spiritual mission was?
His most important spiritual mission was to let people live.
Oh my goodness, how profound.
He smiles and he said, "Thank you."
Okay, you're welcome. Now, what do you think about the state of humanity now, including India?
He's saying that it still brings tears to his heart. This is why he regularly meets with men and women of government status all over the world. It is why he continues to encourage his grandchildren to carry on his work that he did on earth so that it may not be left behind. It is why I do the work I am doing now with you, us.
Oh, goodness.
So that by chance, by perfect intervention, someone is watching and willing to change the way they perceive themselves. There are so many different ways to learn. And one way might be a simple interview, as we are offering today. One way might be to read a book. One way might be to see it laid out in front of them through example. I just encourage people to never rest, to always grow towards allowing emotional truth to be their first priority of their life. All the rest will follow.
Okay. Now, were you here to learn anything?
Struggle.
Do you think you accomplished that?
Yes.
It sounds
Yes.
like it. And I suppose it was your spiritual mission, but you were here to obviously teach something too.
Teach by example.
Okay, and you obviously accomplished that.
Nodding his head, yes.
Do you have any messages for us? Any final messages?
Eric's talking to him. God. Eric can just talk to anybody, can't he?
Oh, yes.
Oh, he's saying just really off the cuff things to get him to crack up, like he busted out with, Gandhi, you should tell people on Earth to be safe drivers. Like, it's completely random. It has nothing to do with what we're like. But it's like, and then the other one, he was like, or how not to prevent forest fires.
Oh
And
my gosh.
just nonsense.
Why are you doing that, Erik?
God, he's tickled. He's totally tickled by his just off the cuff. It was just such a weird moment.
And
Eric said,
why are you doing this, Erik?
Yeah, Eric's like, come on. It's okay that I have the balls to do things that nobody else will do but wants to do. I was like, oh my God.
And Erik? And Gandhi, what is your answer to that?
He said laughter is very important.
That's true. Now, speaking of that, Erik, what are your questions for Gandhi?
Erik says if stop. Start over. Take two. If emotional truth is so important, then why were we born with consciousness? Why do we have brains?
Interesting. Very good, Erik.
Erik goes, Gandhi, here's the microphone. Gandhi is talking about that the brain should not be seen, or consciousness should not be seen as a lesser valued organ, instrument, that it is the brain that powers the heart to be so invincible. Yet somewhere along in humanity, one man decided to take many men under his wing, many men and women and children under his wing, and taught them to believe in the idea of one being right and strong and a leader, and the others need to be followers. And this is where the tool, the brain as a tool, was rewired. And he said every day when you're being presented with your marketing or people's influences or stories, your brain decides to follow it rather than to let your heart be a leader and the heart dictate if the influence is actually correct or good for the person. because it is the emotional truth could not survive without the brain or the conscious being present. He's trying to tell Erik that it's not a battle between the two. They actually coexist and work very well together. But we're looking at the true essence of the soul of a human being, it lies within the emotional spirit, not the conscious spirit. But they are neither in conflict nor good nor bad. He's trying to give it in different ways. Erik's telling him, no, I got it. I just thought I would throw that out there because you talk a lot about how you feel, but you don't necessarily talk about why do people think so much.
Okay. Well, there is no good or bad, obviously. We've learned about that. But you mentioned one man. Are you speaking metaphorically?
Metaphorically, and he says you can use that in repetition throughout all of history.
Okay. All right. Now, any other questions, Erik? That's a hard one to follow because it was wonderful.
He said he put his smart cap on today.
To the side, his little ball cap to the side, of course.
He says, no, that was the main one. And then he just flat out asked if Gandhi was boxers or briefs.
Oh, my goodness.
And Gandhi smiled, didn't pause, and he said neither.
Oh, my goodness. Okay. I figured that was going to be the answer. Okay. I'm not going to edit that out, Gandhi. You know that, right?
He's completely fine with that. Absolutely.
It's going commando, eh?
He said, whatever one says in private, they should be strong enough to say in public.
Okay.
There should be no distinction.
Okay. Now, here's my last question. What do you think about the blog Channeling Erik?
He's confirming that that's the work that you are doing. He's saying that you're a true example of leading by example and being able to share privately or share publicly what you experience privately. This is what will allow you to stand out from others. He appreciates that you see vulnerability as being a strength and not a weakness.
Do you have any advice for any changes or?
Continue to tell your story as you tell it to yourself in your own body. Okay. Do not change to meet the needs of what the culture says or what others demand or what others say. Erik just shouted out amen.
Can I have an amen?
It was just about like that, too.
Okay. All right, well, I don't have any other questions. Jamie, do you have any questions?
Mm-mm.
Well, that was a wonderful interview, and I'm very appreciative, very grateful, Gandhi. This has been such an eye-opener. I'm just so grateful, and I thank you. I thank Jamie, and I thank Erik. You're welcome on stage anytime you want, Gandhi.
He has his hands to his chest, and he bows.
All right.
He said, thank you for today. Erik says, Gandhi, maybe I'll catch you later out on the dance floor.
Oh, my goodness. All right, I love you all.
Erik's blowing kisses. Thank you for this. This was wonderful. I'm going to be on a high for the rest of the day.
All
And
right.
eating.
Yes, go get some lunch.
That's terrible. Just fasting for a morning. And I'm already...
Starving.
Yes.
All right.
Yes. Maybe that's something we should look at.
Yes. Love you guys and bye.
Bye. Take care.
You too. Bye.
Bye.